All right. We are live on the Hameen Media Group. This is RTW Rewind. I'm your host, Radicalized Rob Francois. I am joined by fellow HMG comrade, one of the hosts of the A Show, the producer of the A Show, with Aaron Stevens and April Hunter. He is the multi-talented Big Ray's best friend, according to Ray.
Best friend, definitely. Yeah, he's not my kayfabe best friend like Andrew Bella.
Right? You recognize the golden pipes of Mr. Colin Wysong. What's going on, brother?
What's going on, Rob? Thank you for having me on the show. First and foremost, this is a good time. I've listened to a lot of the other shows that everybody's been on. Rick Vickery's food episode was awesome. That dude, there's nothing he loves more than Charlotte than food. I guess that's the only thing. It's food, and then Shar like
it's
somewhere.
Clever.
It's very good, very like paper edge close. That's how close it is.
Well, he hijacked my show, which I let him do willingly because he is such a connoisseur of the food. Everybody knows Rick Vickery eats out. Vickery Fitness or whatever the hell he promotes.
RBV Fitness.
RBV Fitness. That's right. I'm sure Stevie Richards loves that shit.
I wonder if you poked him in the stomach if he would make this noise.
It's quite possible. We should try that actually one day. In August for his next wrestling event at the Wine Mixer. So I'll definitely do that and see what happens. When I poke him.
Catalina Wrestling Mixer. I love it.
I appreciate you being here, man. It's our first time actually talking somewhat face to face.
Yeah.
I've been a big fan of your work. It's good to have you on the show. I'm looking forward to talking some G.I. Joe. All my guests picked their topics. This is the one that you picked. I don't know why, but we're about to find out. How far back does your fandom for G.I. Joe go?
Okay, so I was born in '84, and I had a brother who was 5 years older than me. So of course I played with a lot of the toys that he had, and of course he was into the Transformers, the Turtles, the G.I. Joes. I was as well. So I kind of carried on, and my favorite thing about the G.I. Joe toys is the articulation. Yeah. As a person who enjoyed wrestling, my brother, again, he's the one that got me into wrestling, really. And I would watch him like he was, you saw the tweet the other day where the guy was like, oh, I wonder what the IWC would have been like if Twitter had been around, Like, well, my brother was the dude on the message boards, trading the tapes, doing all, like, he was the original, like, IWC, if you want to call it that. And he would take a dice, like just a normal die, and he would play like wrestlers with the G.I. Joes or with the Turtles. He'd have like entrances and everything, and like one guy would be the odds, the other one would be the evens, and he'd roll the dice and if you got 3 moves first, you'd get the pin and win the match. So I watched him play like that, and then just the things that you could do with them, like I said, the articulation, the amount of toys these days. Imagine if the WWE toys had the articulation, the things that you could do with the Jax figures, if they bent at the waist or even twisted at the wrist. I think the only other toy that I've found that's like that out there is the Gundam models. Mm-hmm. Have you ever played with those or seen those, Rob?
I've seen them. Yeah, I've seen them.
So you build them yourself, and then they have like over 100 points of articulation that you can like move them with, and that's fun too, because in yourself you can build them. But the old G.I. Joes, you could build them. They had the little screw in the back. You break one, you get 2 snake eyes. You break one, you just take the other body apart, put it back together, or you get mix match G.I. Joes from the different parts that you can find if any of them break and things like that. That's something that we used to do too, with the little rubber band in the waist. That just the whole series too. Like, I don't get why nostalgia reasons why like Turtles, He-Man, a lot of these other cartoons and things that we watched back in the day get so much praise, but you never really hear about G.I. Joe. And you might have some theories behind that. I honestly think it's the military stuff. I don't know why it's not as upfront as some of these other fantastical shows that we watched when we were kids.
I mean, it's possible that it's a military thing, especially like, hey, you tell your parents, I want to grow up and be like G.I. Joe. And they're like, the fuck you are. And He-Man was like, a mythical figure with the, he's fucking jacked. He's got the sword and all that. So he's slaying fucking wildebeests or whatever. I don't even know. But Turtles, though, I have to admit, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, that kind of was my jam growing up. I mean,
of course. I mean, I get it. You're biased.
It's more marketable, I guess. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? Like, it's marketable to kids. I guess soldiers pretty much aren't really marketable to kids, and I'm assuming that's what they thought of. But yeah, there's still a big, huge base of fans when it comes to GI Joe, and I mean they've had a pretty good run. They're still making movies, for Christ's sakes. 34 years later.
I'm not going to tell. I haven't been a big fan of the live action movies. Like I just feel like it's not the same. I feel like with cartoons, like anime, you can just do so much more with your imagination with the cartoon than you can with some of these live action. But I guess the CGI has gotten better now. But I just feel like they're not sticking true to the characters, and maybe that's just me again being the nostalgia act, because I remember the comic books. Like they would have characters die in the comic books. Like, why can't I feel like they do it, but with the kitty gloves on when they try to do it, when it should just be like this. They should treat it like the Marvel movies. Like it should be just like that. Like where you get the, oh my God, is Cobra gonna do it? Like just all of that stuff, like sometimes he succeeds, sometimes he doesn't.
I agree. I mean, it makes me wonder, like, what is there left to do when it comes to G.I. Joe universe that they haven't done? I mean, you had a long run in the cartoons, you had a long run in the comics. Yeah, the movies haven't been up to par. Especially when you compare them to other, comic movies,
franchises,
franchises. I mean, I'm not gonna say I hated the movies. I'm actually looking forward to the new one that's coming out in October.
Well, it's about Snake Eyes. I could definitely get down behind that, especially if they do the origin story and everything right.
Right now, that they can really strike money on, I think. But hey, Gam Wolfer's in the house. What's going on, brother?
Wolfers.
Growing up as a kid in the 80s, because I'm a little bit older than you. I was born in 76. I do remember when the cartoon was on originally. And it's something we talked about off air. Is a big thing that really pushed them to the forefront was their relationship with Sergeant Slaughter, because he was real life, G.I. Joe. So that was a great partnership between the two, and kind of had that crossover, connection with WWF back in the day. So whoever came up with that idea, it was a really smart marketing campaign. And smart move to get him on board for sure.
Well, if you look at a lot of Vince's character work in the late 80s, early 90s, it's a lot of just like just straight characters, and you get a lot of that with G.I. Joe. And now I'm looking at your background, they have the Native American guy, and it's probably because he looks too stereotypical as the Native American guy. But you got to think it's all inclusive. You've got Snake Eyes, who's supposedly the deaf, dumb, and blind guy. You've got Scarlet. You've got Lady J. You've got the sailor guy with his parrot. You've got the Native American there. Like, I mean, you've got African American characters that are in the show prominently.
A basketball player that just spoke in like sports talk.
Yeah, I mean, you had a little bit of everything, and even I think that too is why I kind of correlated a lot with wrestling, because the characters were so much like the WWE characters, and Sergeant Slaughter was such a great fit. I mean, even let's take a guy like Hulk Hogan. Like, yeah, he was like Mr. 80s, Mr. early 90s, but Slaughter, I think, killed a lot of that when he did the turn.
Yeah.
But I think he was still prominent in some of the G.I. Joe stuff, but he was still just as big a star as Hogan, if you think about it. Like, he was prominent in the second series that came out after the movie. He was more of a prominent character, did the voiceover stuff for it, and like you said, was kind of carried the flagship as like, hey, that's a name that I see. I'm going to go watch the show or interact with that product because of Sergeant Slaughter.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And that's kind of like, I saw him first on that before I actually saw him on WWF TV. I didn't learn about him as a wrestler until after the fact, because I was watching
a lot of people. There's probably a lot of people that were like that.
Yeah. So when I saw him, I was like, what is the G.I. Joe guy doing on here? And he wasn't really around that much when I started watching wrestling around 88. But I saw, old clips of him and all that. And then when he came back and did the turn in 90, or was it 91? I think it was like late 90. Was it 91? I'm fucking old. I can't remember. But when he came back and did the whole Iraqi thing, I was like, G.I. Joe fucking turned.
Yeah, he turned. Oh my God, Cobra's coming out. Where's Destro? Oh my gosh, he's Zartan. He's really just Zartan. It's not really Slaughter.
So that really took me by surprise, and that was a big shock. So I learned about him as a wrestler much later. Watched his great matches at MSG in the late 70s, early 80s. I mean, he's a great worker, and he could bump his ass off too for a bigger guy.
Well, and he knew his character. What does Hameen say about the character? Character's going to get you over no matter what. And G.I. Joe was him to a T, playing his character, and kind of what I mentioned to earlier. I think that's why I like G.I. Joe so much, is because you have so many different characters and they get to be seen as main players. I mean, in Turtles, you had your 4 main guys. They'd bring in the periphery characters every once in a while. I mean, I was a big Turtle fan. Did you see the picture of like the box of toys my brother found that was like a shared bin of all of our action figures and stuff? Like it's probably mostly Turtles, because I used to still play with my G.I. Joe so much that I ended up losing all of my G.I. Joes. Right. But the Turtles, I still have a lot of Turtles, a lot. And I was big into Turtles too. But I had a G.I. Joe tent. It was like the tank tent, and it had like a little inflatable Top Gun that you could shoot, and you could pop up out of the front. Like, yeah, I was a total G.I. Joe mark.
And they made a lot of money off the action figures, which if you have any originals today that are, still packaged, I'm not sure what they're going for, but I can only imagine.
I actually pulled some of that up. There's a Snake Eyes. I've got actually the top 10 most expensive G.I. Joe toys, and one is the fridge mail away. So the fridge, he had this big, huge, giant hammer you could mail away and get the fridge. He's worth about $200. Let's see. The most expensive one, there's a Snake Eyes that goes for $2,100. It's a version 2 Snake Eyes. Let's see. One of the Nurse dolls. There's a Cobra Commander that's worth about $5,000, because instead of the Cobra, it's got like a Mickey Mouse head looking thing on it. There's a variant for that one. And the number one most expensive item is the G.I. Joe Vamp and Hal Sears exclusive. And it goes for like $7,500. But I'm sure you could probably, like you said, if you have some original ones still in the package or still just in good condition, you could probably sell it on the aftermarket for a couple $100, if not like $50 to $100 on some.
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, they had a ton of figures. I was just looking at the list, like from 82 to 94. There was at least 100
and they spawned off other ones. Remember the Mortal Kombat ones that came out? Like even WMAC Masters kind of mocked the 3.79 or 3.75 inch figures that came out, like the ones that we were talking about with like the rubber band body and the all the articulation. Like there were so many other companies that either paired up with them or copied that design. I mean, even the dollar store or the Walgreens CVS G.I. Joes were kind of exactly the same. And I never wondered, like I never could figure out why they got rid of that toy. I mean, that's like such a good design for a toy. And I was so disappointed when the G.I. Joes moved back to like the stiffer design where it only like moved at certain points. I was crushed, and I stopped buying G.I. Joes at that point in time.
Did you really?
Yeah. I was done with the toys. I was like, oh, this is not like you give me filet mignon for 20 years, and then you turn around and give me a $5 steak that's like well done and overcooked. Like, what do you think I'm gonna do? I'm gonna just look at you like, where the hell's my filet mignon? Like, what the fuck you cutting your costs and all that type of shit. Like, give me the toy that I want.
Labrat Candace Spaceman, welcome to the chat. Good to have you guys here. Yeah, it's funny. I like the fact that while there was so many like Real American Hero characters, they had just as many Cobra Command too. I mean, overall, they probably had like 300 fucking figures out there, and it's like that's printing money, back in the 80s, because every kid wanted to have all of them.
And if you wanted an army, think about it. You can't just have one of the Venom soldiers. You have to have like multiple ones of them. So like, because you got to have the guys that die. You got to have the fodder. Like you got to buy the normal blue clothed soldiers that were there. The nurse was one of the most expensive ones. It was in the top 10. I think it's like top 3. Because I had that pulled up. Let me see. I can tell you.
How's it going, buddy?
Number 4, it goes for about $3,500, the GI Nurse, but it's more of the old school, like the original figures that came out. That's like a Ken and a Barbie doll. Because those came out first, like in I think the 70s, I think 60s or 70s.
What's funny is, do you have an issue with them changing up some of the characters, like Ripcord that's behind me? Like they changed him to an African American at one point.
I don't care about any of that. Like it's that type of stuff doesn't bother me as much.
You don't go deep into the lore, because I mean there are people that are hardcore fans are like, why are you doing that? Like, making a black Superman now or something like that. Like people.
No, I mean, come on. Shaq was the original black Superman. Like it's okay. Like I don't get it's been happening for millennia that people have been changing race and characters and creeds and stuff like that on people. Like, I mean, more people were upset when they made Captain America Hydra. Like they had to retcon that faster than they've done anything else. Like, oh my God, you can't make Captain America Hydra. I mean, yes, we can. We can do whatever the hell we want. We just killed Wolverine. Like,
right.
We can do whatever we want with your comic books. I mean, even Deadpool, not to get sidetracked. I mean, G.I. Joe is a Marvel property, I think, or was a Marvel property at one point in time.
But it was, yeah.
But Deadpool, a lot of people don't remember Deadpool came out and he was like one of the strongest mutants characters or whatever in existence. He could teleport. He was, and then he had all his abilities with the guns and healing and all that other stuff. They're like, yeah, we got to take the teleportation thing away from him, and we got to take this. Like they took like little things because they realized like, all right, he's gonna be a main character, but now he's like super OP compared to like what we have other characters.
I mean, he can't die. Isn't that good enough? You know what I mean? Like,
well, he can teleport. Like they took that from him. Like, so
that doesn't make sense. But I mean, I get it. I mean, even DC took liberties back in I think it was the late 70s, maybe it was even the 60s. My dad it was a huge comic book. It was like that freaking big. Muhammad Ali versus Superman. And they actually fought in the comics, and I guess somebody had kryptonite involved or whatever. And
he had kryptonite in the gloves. I can see it. I can see Ali doing that.
Superman. So I mean,
dip the wraps in like a kryptonite, like
which I can see doing. You know what I mean? He was a smart guy. But yeah, I mean, they killed Superman in the comics and somehow brought him back. I mean,
then they broke Batman's back. I mean, it happens. It happens.
Yeah. It happens. What the fuck were we talking about? Oh yeah, G.I. Joe.
G.I. Joe's. Yeah.
You ever play the video games?
I did. I was a Nintendo, one of the Nintendo ones. I can't remember which one it was. Let me look it up. Was one of my favorite ones because you could play as the different Nintendo characters. The G.I. Joes.
Yeah, there was 2 on the NES. 1991, the original G.I. Joe came out, and then they had a spin-off after that, the Atlantis Factor.
I think the Atlantis Factor was one that I played. It was mostly the Nintendo games that I played because I wasn't too. Again, I was into the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle games. Honestly, like the arcade one was like the best because you could go to the arcade and play it and come home and not have to worry about putting tokens in there.
True.
It was that's one of the things where G.I. Joe kind of lacked. They didn't have quite the game aspect of it as like the Turtles did, because the Turtles just came heavy with the fighting games with yep, that's why I'm telling you, that's why I got off the bandwagon a long time ago. Like if they did Call of Duty with it, or they did the skins, like make it something like that, like that would be cool. Because I think Fortnite did some, I believe. I think Fortnite did some skins. I think there was like a Snake Eyes or a Storm Shadow skin that was out there. And I mean, even with the new Snake Eyes movie, that would be a perfect way for you to get in on some of these bandwagons with some of these other franchises and games that are out there.
I mean, we've seen it. We've seen Mortal Kombat pull characters in. We've seen, if you're into Super Smash Brothers for Nintendo, they pull in, other genres like Street Fighter Universe was in there. And we've had Marvel and DC come together. That's something they could easily do for the release of the movie. It's just, throw in Snake Eyes or some of the Cobra Commander, whatever, G.I. Joe.
I mean, Destro, Cobra Commander.
Yeah, downloadable characters for whatever
Duke,
game. Yeah.
Beachhead. just random characters that you have.
Yeah, it's Spaceman. I had the Army Men growing up.
Those two. Yeah, they were usually the fodder for the good guy side, because that was another point I was going to make. Like, Cobra had all these foot soldiers, basically, that would go out and get killed. But, like, the G.I. Joe, they had, like, their own, like, little, like, young lion G.I. Joes that they'd send out on the front line, because there's no way the 10 guys that you see on the show every day could battle this whole army
Right,
that
right,
Cobra has in front of him.
almost
You
like
just didn't get to see
stormtroopers.
those guys.
Yeah, like Star Wars, the stormtroopers. Like, how many stormtroopers is there? Like, and they're the worst freaking like soldiers ever.
Well, they're worse. I mean, think about GI Joe. There's constantly blue and red bolts flying back and forth, and nobody's getting shot. Like, so both sides are completely terrible. And until it's like comes up to like Snake Eyes, Duke, or Lady J, or somebody like that to come in and actually do something.
Why is that a thing? I don't even know. Like, why? Who creates an army like that? Like untrained soldiers that can't shoot.
We can't shoot for shit. Get on the front line. You're gonna be the first guys.
Get out there, right? They're just pawns. Gam says he remembers playing Cobra Commander on the NES with the helicopter gimmick. Yeah, I do remember that too. I mean,
I vaguely remember that as well. Yeah,
I do remember that. See, like, I liked G.I. Joe growing up, but again, like, I was into the Transformers, you know what I mean? I was into the Turtles. Like, when I got my first Transformer, it's like, oh, it's a fucking, like, I forgot, it's a car, it's a fucking hot dog cart or whatever. I don't fucking know, but, you know, it was just cool that you could have, you know, two different things. And, you know, watching the cartoons, and, yeah, there was nothing cooler than the Autobots, dude. And, you know, I wasn't a fan of the heels back in the day, but, you know, when Optimus Prime died in the movie, I'm sorry, spoilers.
That was definitely sad. Starscream cussed. You know, it's
yeah. Spoiler alert. But I mean, that was like, and then when the live action movies came out, they actually did a decent job with it. So why did they drop the ball with the GI Joe movies? And you know, when they have all the technology, all the CGI that they could do with Transformers, why haven't they written good GI Joe movies then?
It's got to be whoever's behind these movies, like, because it's a war. Like, how can you mess up a war movie? Like, it's pretty much what it is. Or do something that's like a thriller, or like, because I think there was comedy even in the show. Like, you could have that comedic aspect to it. Like, I don't know. I mean, Canada Spaceman says the GI Joe movies were awesome. I don't know about the live action ones. I feel like I watched like the first one and was kind of like, but I'm a mark for the actual cartoon movie where, you know, he turns into a serpent. There's all this cloning stuff. It's Sergeant Slaughter again is, you know, like running the show. Like,
right.
It's so much better. And again, like with books and comic books, you can use your imagination. With cartoons, you can draw and do anything. Like some of my favorite shows, like Cowboy Bebop and Berserk, are cartoons. You know, they're not actual live action shows.
Right. Yeah.
I'm not a big fan of like Game of Thrones and stuff like that.
Dude, I'm not either, which is funny. Like, I guess I don't get into like type things. Like, I never watched Walking Dead. Never really got into Game of Thrones. I never liked The Hobbit or any of the Lord of the Rings shit and all that came out. And I mean, like, people fucking obsessed over that. Harry Potter, like, I don't know. For whatever reason, I never got into like.
Well, you know why I like The Hobbit? Because the first one I saw was the cartoon version that we rented at the library.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah. And it was a cartoon. Like, I could use my imagination with the Hobbit fighting the dragon for the gold ring and all that stuff. Like,
yeah.
I mean,
speaking of hobbits, how was Ray's wedding that you went to?
Oh, he's actually a very giant hobbit. Ray's wedding was awesome. We got to go to New York. I hung out with Billy Ray Valentine, and got to partake in this awesome. They go to this awesome bar. It's like an Irish bar that they go. He said they go 2 times a month for the last 7 years. Is what Ray said. So he's very in with the owner, Mary O. She's really awesome. Like, we went, hung out at the bar. She gave us free shots. Took care of us with the food wise. Like, they make an awesome shepherd's pie. Like, that's what she's known for. Like, it is dope. I had a $40 pastrami sandwich at Cat's Deli. Yes, sir, Canada Spaceman. Yeah, you got to get the pastrami. It would have probably been $100 had the Fiend gotten something, but she was like, it was delicious though. But Mary O's, it was very cool because we went the night before for Ray's wedding or whatever, and then Sunday, I actually asked the Fiend to marry me. I proposed or whatnot. She said yes. So we went back to Mary O's looking for food, and she remembered us. like was like, hey guys, and we were like, oh, we were just looking for some food, and she was like, no, I closed the kitchen. And I was like, oh, you know, we just got like engaged. And she was just like, Oh my God. Like she treated us like the family, like how Ray sees us and stuff like that. It was so awesome. I will always go back to Mary O's and go see Mary and the establishment and stuff like that and support her and her business over there in New York. It's awesome.
That is really, really cool. And congratulations.
Yeah. Oh, thank you. Thank you. Yes. Yeah. We did a horse and carriage ride through Rockefeller Center, through Central Park and all that type of stuff. It was a lot of fun. I've never done anything like that before, and getting kind of the tour, seeing the history and the architecture of like downtown New York. That's another thing I like. I like old cities. I went to Chicago by myself and just wandered downtown, just looking at the architecture and everything that's just around you.
Thank God you didn't wander in the wrong parts of Chicago, because
that's true. I did have a guy try to clean my shoes while I was walking down the street.
Oh, no shit.
Yeah. He was like, $20, I'll clean your shoes. And then he just started cleaning my shoes. And I'm just like, I was like, dude, stop. He's like, well, I cleaned one of them. You still owe me some money. And I'm like, here's $10. Here's $10. Go away.
Got to give him credit for hustling. I do have to know before we move on. Did Ray cry?
Yes, he sang. He cried. I think I do have footage of it. Yes, I do. I have him singing. He doesn't sing very often, and he sang at his wedding, he's got a beautiful voice. Don't besmirch that man. He is he's not only a lover, he's a fighter, and he's a damn fine singer.
That's right. He's a global icon and a national treasure. No, I love Ray, but I do want to see him cry, because that's just
what would his G.I. Joe name be?
Ooh, that's a good one. Smooth Jazz.
I like that. That's I can see it. He'd have that sexy voice. He'd have to do his voiceover voice.
He would
the whole entire time. Ben Hameen would definitely fit in as a character on the Cobra side of G.I. Joe as well. See, like character work, it just fits. Like you can just take like just all kinds of different characters and just plug them into G.I. Joe, and they would work. Like I'm sure Rambo, you could have a Rambo guy show up,
Yeah, for sure. I mean, like they pretty much had him. Like I said, it was 300 fucking characters for the show. I mean,
who are some of your favorites? Throwing out some of the characters. I mean,
some of my favorites, like I said, Sergeant Slaughter was probably the guy. It's hard for me to remember names. Like,
it's like
you put me on the spot now, and I'm like,
Bazooka, Beachhead were some of the main ones. God, I've got like this alphabetical list, and it's just so.
That's why I have Ripcord behind me, because
Ripcord was one of my favorites. There's so many different like peripheral ones, but there's like Flint, Duke, of course, Dusty. Dusty was like the first guy that you saw like wearing the camo and the paint. You're just like, what is up with this dude?
Yes. Let me look at the list here. If
bad guys, of course, Zartan, because he could like shapeshift. Destro was a solid choice, because you could always tell he as much as Cobra Commander was this like chaotic evil character, he still had this aloofness about him. And Destro was that one that was like, why am I under this dude? And he finally does like take over. But the whole entire time, Destro's like, why am I? What is wrong with me? Like, I could crush this dude and just take over. Like, why do I take orders from him?
Yeah, for sure. Altitude was one of my favorites.
Okay, yeah.
Who else? Barrel Roll, Bazooka.
I think Deep Six might have been one that we had, and I always, like I said, I mentioned the wrestling of it. I would use he'd have his like diver boots on. Yeah, and I would always use them as like weighted boots. Like if he kicked you with the boots, it was over. Like that was like his like finisher kind of thing. Like Lex Luger with the loaded forearm, he had the loaded boots. Yeah, you didn't want to get kicked by Deep Six.
Blowtorch was cool. I like this freaking gimmick. Like he had the mask on, he had like
and the red suit. Yeah, the little pouch of the episode I was watching beforehand. The G.I. Joes are so inept too. Like the guy, there's a certain particle that they're protecting. It's like an element or something that they need, and the guy's like, oh well, this gas will do this, and we got to keep it in this thing. And a janitor just comes in, and the janitor foils like the GI, like he spills water on the floor, throws a bucket. One of the guys gets his foot caught in the bucket. The other two, Wild Bill and Blowtorch, are trying to get the bucket off dude's foot. And instead of trying to go and fight the guy, one of the other guys gets a mop to the face And it's just like this single janitor is beating up 4 GI Joes and stealing the element and getting out of there. Like, then you find out it's Zartan, and you're like, oh, okay, I get that now. Like,
yeah, it makes sense.
It makes sense. Yeah, it makes sense. But it's just funny to see them all get foiled, and then later on, like Cobra Commander does something stupid, and they get everything right back.
Yeah, Cobra Commander was
Storm Shadow. If I would have to say, is probably one of my favorite ones as well on the Cobra side. His story, I mean, he's had several different stories. I mean, he went from being an ultimate heel, that silent killer, just like Snake Eyes, to actually having the babyface turn, as they kind of retconned his story a little bit, like what you and I were talking about, where he actually served with Snake Eyes and then with Vietnam, and then he actually joined Cobra to clear his name and to do like he infiltrated Cobra. And then that's when he turned face and joined the GI Joes again. Like, so they have all kinds of different stories and stuff that they could do. Metalhead was my favorite Cobra.
Shoot rockets saying bang. Yeah, I wish I could do that.
And then there were the twins.
Yep,
Tomax and Zemot. They were some mainstays.
Blizzard was cool. Big Lob was the former basketball player that just spoke in sports commentator jargon. Like really, dude? Like, who thought that had to be a character in an army? Yeah.
Hey, I think the Harlem Globetrotters were kind of popular at the time, so that's where that's a good point. Crossover could probably have been. You know,
that is a good point. Let's see, Bulletproof. I remember. Cloudburst. Cold Front is like the coolest name to me. You know, I'm
Gung Ho. Gung Ho was the I think he was the guy with the Navy tattoo on his chest.
Mm-hmm. Yep, that's right. Let's see, I'm pulling down the list here. Hollow Point. He's a sniper. Yeah. Go figure. Some of those are pretty self-explanatory. They had somebody called Law and Order.
Special Victims Unit.
Right? I'm gonna have to go back and watch some of this stuff just to
Pathfinder. Well, it's a good thing that you say that, because anyone watching right now, I didn't know this. You know, they promote that June is Pride Month and June is all these other things. It's actually GI Joe month as well. That's something they kind of push behind all the other hoopla that goes on in June. And Hasbro, the YouTube channel, if you just type in search Hasbro, they're live streaming all these old GI Joe cartoons. And I think they're in full. I think they even have the PSA at the end. And that's the other thing.
Mm-hmm.
What other shows were giving you PSAs like don't go touch a live wire that's just been disconnected? Like, you weren't getting that from Turtles. No, He-Man wasn't coming up to you in his like Adam character like, hey guys, don't take drugs. It's bad for you. Like, no, because He-Man's clearly like jacked up on B12.
Well, yeah, no shit, right? Yeah. That's hilarious. No, I forgot about the PSAs, but I'm definitely gonna go check that out on the Hasbro YouTube channel just to refresh my memory. Because I mean, dude, last time I saw the cartoon was probably when it aired. You know, like fucking 1984, 85, somewhere around there is when I started watching it. So it's been a long time. I've like they say, I've forgotten more than most people will ever learn. That's really fucking true.
Yeah, no, I'm right there with you. There's so many cartoons that like you and I probably know from like watching them that kids aren't ever going to know, like the toys that we played with and some of these, like you don't hear a lot about like Superhuman Samurai Cyber Squad. Now that might be a little bit out of your age range, but you seem to have kind of stayed with like the nerdy stuff throughout your life, so you might have been into that. Like I mean, it had God, I can't think of his name right now. He was in Clue, he was in Rocky Horror Picture Show. Who was the actor that played the bad guy in that? Tim Curry was like the bad, like they had Tim Curry for this show. Like you can't go wrong with an evil guy like that. The toys for those were awesome too.
Yeah. I mean, dude, a lot of kids, like, you know, a lot of people nowadays won't even know what Power Rangers were, for fuck's sake. You know what I mean?
That's
like even that was like early 90s.
And if they do, it's like the Star, whatever new like fantasy universe Power Rangers or whatever it is now. Like, and they've kind of retconned all that stuff too, where it's like they're all in the same universe. Because I think they've had like Jason's come back. I think Tommy's come back. Like I think they've had people come back and do that show. Like, that Power Rangers was another thing that was just crazy.
It was
just blew up out of nowhere.
Yeah, for sure. Like it really did. And I was older by then, but I'm like, what the fuck are we talking about? And I go back and watch.
I definitely stopped going outside to sit down and watch Power Rangers when I was a kid.
Right.
Just like, all right, I have to watch this first before I go
Yeah.
outside. But like G.I. Joe's just gave me so much more of nostalgia. Like I would set up huge battles in my living room between like GI Joes and have them like in positions and do all this other stuff. Like my whole living room and house was just like a huge battlefield, and it usually, of course, the Joes would win. It might get down to like one character being alive, and then of course, in my imagination, everyone, if you win, everyone comes back to life. That was on that side, so they're like, "Oh yeah, you won, and we all get to come back to life. It's all fun."
That's so cool. I could see you doing that. Like flank from the left, flank from the left. Just setting everybody up in military situations.
And then, like I said, I'd use the dice. I'd let the dice, tempt fate. It's almost like a weird Dungeons and Dragons with your like action figures, but without
That's
a 20-sided die, you're just using the 6.
But I like what your brother did, like, fucking wrestling and everything and all that. Like I had the blue WWF ring and all that. Like if I would have had all those figures, I probably would have done the same thing.
Yeah.
And I wish I still had some of my Hasbro.
I used the Dragon Balls. No Wolfers. I didn't know about Dragon Ball Z at this time. They just had they defeated Cobra, and the good of defeating Cobra just brought everyone back to life.
That's true.
So they could do it all again tomorrow.
Yeah, Dragon Ball Z and like Pokemon and all that. Like that was way beyond me. I was in my 20s when that shit came out. So
yeah, I remember I was a senior in high school when Goku finally went Super Saiyan for the first time on like American television, and kids don't understand the length of time that you had to wait from when they didn't have all the episodes fully dubbed, and like Goku would get to Namek, and then it would restart with Dragon Ball all the way, and you get to this point where like, oh, Goku just made it to Namek, and then they go right back to him being a kid. You're like, what the hell is this? Like, he was about to go kick butt, and now he's like a tiny little kid again. And then they would go back through the series and get to that point and start right back over. And they might show the movies in between, but it was mostly you had to wait, and it was probably a good 6 years that before we actually got them processing the episodes and dubbing them and getting them over in America. Yeah, it was best back in the late 90s, early 2000s.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Yeah, and I missed all that, but that's great storytelling. I mean, that is long-term story development, and that's something that you don't really see anymore.
No, you don't.
Waiting 6 years for a payoff. I mean,
well, the vet will tell you that One Piece is even better than Dragon Ball Z, and he's tried to get me to watch One Piece. You should bring him on to talk about One Piece. That would be. I don't know if you know anything about One Piece.
That would be schooly in it. That's fine.
It would be very exciting. It's kind of like a new age Dragon Ball Z. Luffy is like this pirate kid, and they have these devil fruits. And if you eat a devil fruit, you get a certain power, but you also get a negative thing, like you can't swim anymore. So like you would basically, if you get thrown in the water, you drown. But all of these people that eat these devil fruits become pirates, and they're on these ships traveling around on the ocean. And it's like, if you fall in the water, you're dead regardless. So, but it's like Dragon Ball Z, where he gets to a certain point where he can't beat a certain person, and then he gets that next power. And then it's another series where him and his friends get beat up by a stronger monster or bad guy, and then he gets another power. Like it's exactly in that same kind of mold. But I think the character development's a little bit different, and than kind of Vegeta and those guys. But he's this lovable. Luffy's this lovable like monkey dude that's got like stretchy powers. He's like Reed Richards.
That's really interesting. Yeah. I actually might check that out, and then have the vet on, because that does sound pretty cool. Like, you get this super amazing power, but then there's just something that you can't do anymore that you could always do, and it's like, oh, like, do you take the risk? Do you not take the risk? Like that's kind of cool. That's kind of a cool life lesson.
Yeah, because there's times that they use it as a trope. Like he does fall in the water, and it's all about like, okay, can we get down there and save him before he drowns or whatever kind of thing. So it adds a little layer to the storytelling.
That's really cool.
Yeah. I mean, G.I. Joe is like American anime. I mean, they kind of kept with a lot of the same themes. The characters, the way that it was drawn you know, it was kind of different at the time for how it was drawn. And like I said, the different characters, like you get that in anime, you get the real character development for everybody. And I do think that a lot of the main characters had episodes where they were kind of featured. And even on the Cobra side, they had ones where people were still going strong. Yeah, Sonic, it's definitely still going on. Like it's up to like 700-800 some episodes, something like that. Rob, you're definitely
Oh shit.
in for a long haul here. That's what I'm telling you. Like, yeah. My friend was like, "Hey, just start watching it. You can catch up to me." And he was already on like episode 600. I'm like, yeah, there's no way. I'll try.
I'll see you in 10 years. Yeah.
I'll just watch the new episodes with you whenever you're watching them. It's cool. I'll catch up.
That's pretty funny. Do you think G.I. Joe would get canceled if the cartoons came back? Like, you're looking at the Native American, like, stereotypical guy here, and there's several stereotypical characters. Easy for me to say. Do you think they'd have to rewrite or leave some guys out?
Probably. I think, of course, like the stereotypical guys might get booted out, but you can keep some of the same ones. You know, like I said, it was empowering for women back in the day, and if it wasn't for G.I. Joe, we wouldn't have gotten G.I. Jane with Demi Moore. You know, and even more, like, that's what I don't get. It's like it has to be because of the war aspect and the army aspect of this, and the possibility of like killing people, and they're not just lovely creatures and stuff like that. Like,
right.
It's so empowering for women. Like, you get, like I said, Lady J, you get Scarlet. I mean, you even have the Baroness on the other side, who is a strong woman. Like, you know, like, people are infatuated with La Reina del Sur, you know, the Queen of the South type show. What does that chick do? She's like a huge drug baroness, and people love her. And it's I feel like it didn't quite get the play it did. I mean, April is this huge famous character in Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. What did she do?
Nothing.
She was a reporter. Like,
hung out with him, ate some pizza.
She was like the guy in the Mighty Mighty Boss Tones that just stands on stage and dances all day. He doesn't add anything to the concert, to the music, or anything. He's just there for aesthetics.
That's a great reference, by the way. I don't know if anybody's going to catch that, but
well, so this is a non sequitur. So I went to a Real Big Fish concert in Charlotte, and they played Turn the Radio Off. It was like the anniversary, and they played it from like start to finish. But they left like the popular songs out to play for the encore. And one of the bands that opened for them was the Masked Intruders, and they're like this punk band. They wear masks. They have a security guard, like their parole officer, that comes out with them on stage, and he does the same kind of thing that the Mighty Mighty Boss Tones guy does, right? When he's in his police uniform. Well, I was up front, and he gets down and he comes to each and every individual person, and like, I'll go do stuff by myself. So I went to the show by myself, and like, he's turning around to people in the audience in the front row, and he's like tapping his back, like, do you want to get on my back? I'll give you a ride, kind of thing, right? So he gets to me, and I'm just like, you know what, like fuck it, you only live once, Rob. Let me do this, right? So he taps the back. I'm like, hell yeah. He puts me on his back, and he runs through the mosh pit with me on his back. Like, just like people are trying to knock him down, he runs. He drops me back off at the spot. Now, this is where it was really weird, because later on in the show, he gets up on stage and he pulls off his uniform, and he's got nothing but a banana hammock on. So there I was like, oh Jesus, I was riding this cop's back, and he's just got a banana hammock on. But he's totally not part of the band. He's just there for aesthetic. He's just there for the show, and that's how I feel like it was.
That's really cool. I mean, where else at a Fish concert could that?
Well, no, it was a Real Big Fish concert.
Oh, I'm sorry. I mean, I don't want to piss off the Fish fans.
Yeah, don't piss off Trey Anastasio. Those guys, they work really hard. You don't want to piss off the Fish audience there. Divided Sky here. At RTW Rewind.
Kansas Spaceman wants to know: did your GI Joes have the Kung Fu action grip button in the back, so the fist clenches, or was that only on the $6 million man doll?
I don't think they had. I didn't play with the Ken dolls that would have had the one that was touted as having the Kung Fu grip. Mine I liked because, again, going back to the articulation and the models, I think they were really the first action figure that they came with the display little pad for you to actually have them like posed on your shelf.
Right.
And most kids, again, they played with them. I'm sure there are adult collectors out there, like in the the 80s and stuff like that were posing them and putting them on their shelf. But how many of the toys at that time came out with something for you, like the little stand for you to be able to put under their foot so that you could pose them and put them on your shelf and stuff, like put the weapons in like Snake Eyes hands and like have him like posed ready to roll, you know?
No, you're right. I mean, they did a fantastic job with the creation of those. And I wish more companies or, you know, more franchises would have had that attention to detail, because that was a cool product. Yeah. Well, it's like when the Hasbro WWE figure or WWF figures came out, like some of them had like movable arms or like, you know, Macho Man did an elbow or fucking like, you know,
what was it? I think the Ultimate Warrior. Which one was or Brutus the Barber was spring loaded? Like you'd press him down and he would like spring load. And I think I still might have like a Ravishing Rick Rude. He'd put him in the headlock and you just move his arm back and he would just like punch.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, those were still fun, even though they didn't have all the articulation, but it's not the same. Like, you know, you want to replicate wrestling. You want it to be real, you know, like you want it to the play sets. I mean, we haven't even really touched on like, we've just talked the figures the whole entire time. I mean, like the Turtles had a lot of vehicles and I had like the Terradrome. I had the sewer play set. I had like the turtle vehicle, but I also had like the G.I. Joe vehicles, like the helicopter and the airplane. Some of the smaller cars and vehicles that they had. I mean, they had such a wide assortment of stuff, but the money generated by this stuff, imagine like, all right, now you got the toys, now you got to get the vehicles.
They threw in like Cobra characters with,
you get characters with them sometimes too, and they'd be exclusive because that would be the only way that you could get it. Like if you wanted like a certain beachhead, you'd have to buy it with the aquatic vehicle that came with it.
Right. No different than Barbies or anything like that. Like I want the Barbie drink and shit like that. You know what I mean? Like, but yeah, that's why. I mean, back in the day, it was a money printing machine because, especially around Christmas time, when you tell your parents, "I gotta have this, I gotta have that,"
get the Toys R Us catalog and start circling everything.
Sears catalog, going to Toys R Us. Like, dude, I remember walking to Toys R Us as a kid, and it was just fucking massive, and I'm like, I couldn't take it all in. Like, it was just amazing. It was like the coolest thing that ever happened. Like, just walking around the aisles, just dumbfounded, with my mouth hanging on the floor.
Like grandma's $20 went a long way back then too, because you could get at least, they were like $5 a figure usually, anywhere between like $5 to $7 for a figure. So you get $20, you're walking out of there with like maybe a small vehicle, or you go with the double buy, like you get like 2 G.I. Joes and a turtle.
Yep.
You know, it just depends on what your mood was that day. Because I definitely, again, the Turtles, they came out with the wrestling turtles, the magician turtles. Like they had so many different, like they slapped on a new coat of paint on all the turtles to try to come out with different ones. And they really didn't do that with the G.I. Joe toys. That was another thing. You pretty much got like, these are the characters, this is what you're gonna get kind of thing. You didn't get too much deviation.
There's 300. I mean, what are you gonna do? Like, the fucking toy makers, like, we're not making any more of these fucking. I'm so tired of making these G.I. Joes. I'm not.
But that's 300 of them. But we really there was only like 5 or 6 main characters that you saw in the show.
You couldn't find them all either. I mean, can you just imagine that? Like being a collector and trying to find them all. Like you probably could now on eBay or Amazon or whatever, and try to like, you know, or Craigslist or try to find old stuff like that. But as a kid, you know, if you saw it, you had to get it because you don't know if you're ever going to see it again. Yeah, it might be there again. So
yeah, and we didn't have the internet either to be able to search for this stuff. Like you might find it at a yard sale, or if when they had thrift stores, because I don't think Goodwill was as big back then as it is now. With all that thrift shopping, like you might catch it at a flea market. Like that was your best bet, going on the weekend at like 6 o'clock in the morning, first thing, and catching the guy, pulling the stuff out of the truck for the retro toys. Or like I live in Raleigh, so the state fairgrounds are right here. Like, I mean, it's the capital. So we've got like the state farmers market, and the state fairgrounds always has guys out there selling toys. If you go out on a Friday, Saturday, or like a Saturday afternoon or a Sunday morning, the guys lined up and they have all these old toys, and I just kind of peruse through them and see if I happen to find something, like I'm sure they've been picked over numerous times and all the good stuff's gone, because I'm sure he knows his prices on those things. But who knows, you might find like something that he missed, or even just Matt Schaffer told me one time about the Funkos, just collect what you want to collect.
Mhm.
Like, don't sit there and be like, oh, I got to go get this $2,000 toy. No, collect the nice ones that you like, and they might go up in price at one point in time, or they, somebody might have that same nostalgia and spend $1,000 on it, and then the
Right.
thing you spent 50 cents on is now worth $1,000. I mean, you never know.
Yeah, I hope Funkos keep their value because like Beanie Babies never did back in the day. Like my dad bought like 1,000 of those fucking things, thinking he's gonna cash in later on. Now they're not worth shit. So
Yeah, and they might though. You never know, because again, like the nostalgia for
comes back.
those.
Yeah,
Yeah, the nostalgia for those later on. I mean, I was listening to this gaming podcast, and they talk a lot about like retro games. And the guy was talking about with COVID, the price of PlayStation 3 games, like, and Xbox 360 games. Like, if you could get them for so cheap just several months before COVID, but
yeah.
then because the hardware, you can't get PlayStation 5. So now people are downgrading and getting a solid PlayStation 3, which they're still really good machines. You can still get a lot of play a lot of really solid games off of it. And they're selling copies of these games for double what they were when they bought them brand new. Like it you never know. And so now that's got me looking like, all right, maybe I should start buying like a lot of these next gen consoles, getting geared up for the next 10 years to like have this giant collection of like Xbox One and PlayStation 4 games. Just whenever the next pandemic hits, or whenever like the next VR PlayStation is, where I want to play the old one where I can put the game in, not the one where they implanted in the back of my skull.
That's true. And actually, I wish I'd have known that because I still have a whole fuck ton of like PS1, PS2 games. I got 360. I still play my Xbox 360.
I would check eBay. You might have some gems. Like there was one of the games they were talking about was this game called Puppeteer, and it was just a crappy game. You could get it for like $5-10 at like a GameStop, and then all of a sudden it just, and then there was like a Sony Networks, which was like a combination game, had a bunch of terrible, crappy Sony games on it, and it shot up in price because it's a collection. Oh man, and that's the thing too. Like the memory cards, it's so hard to build computers now because your graphics cards are like, I'm lucky I have a gigabyte motherboard, and they actually went back and allowed you to upgrade your motherboard, so that you could put newer firmware on it. But I've never, like, there's a process in having to actually upgrade your motherboard, and they're like, you have to do each firmware before you can go on to the next one. And if your power goes out or your internet drops, if you're not doing it through a USB, you could erase your whole motherboard. But if I upgraded it to the most current BIOS that they have, I could run better some of these newer processors and not necessarily have to buy a motherboard. I could run some of the newer processors and some of the newer video cards, or even some of the more powerful ones that you can still find out there on the market pretty cheap. And I wish I had known about the computer parts stuff before I got rid of my old computer, because I had a couple of power supplies and an old graphics card that could still run Final Fantasy 14. Like, it was at the time when 14 came out, it was still up to date to be able to run that game. And I just took it to the dump because it had sat outside for so long.
Yeah, that sucks. I had somebody custom build mine. He gave me a GeForce GTX 1070, which it runs pretty well. And I mean, I haven't needed to upgrade it. I mean, it still runs perfect. The fucking computer lights up right away. I stream on Twitch all the time, so it's like, if I had to upgrade it, I probably wouldn't know how. That's why I had somebody build it for me.
A lot of times too, like this one that I got it. It's a Cyber Power, and a Cyber Power is kind of like the pre-built ones that you can get at Walmart or whatever. And the only thing I've had to do to upgrade it is give it more RAM.
Yeah.
And I would try to do Adobe and stuff like that, and it would crash. And ever since I gave it more RAM, I can run BlueStacks. I can run a lot more stuff. And it's just like I said, if I really wanted to upgrade it, I just figure out how to update the BIOS, and I pretty much can keep the same computer as long as the motherboard and the processor stay good. Because that's what happened to my last computer. I think the processor died on it, and it just would not. It was done after that, and I was not in a position to be able to spend money on it, so to speak.
Yeah. Well, you saw MSG took a leap over to the dark side and got himself a Mac. So I have
for production.
That's what I heard. But I've never been an Apple fan. Like, I use Macs in school. Like in high school, we had, that they had all Macs. So I learned how to use it back then. But, whenever I had any home computers, it was always, an IBM compatible PC.
My dad was a Radio Shack employee / manager for over 30 years.
Yeah.
So we've always been around electronics. I've had computer PCs my whole entire life, like even all the way back to old school stuff. Like I remember Prodigy Internet in like 94, 95, like when it first started and everything. Like we were kind of at the top because he worked at Radio Shack, and I'll use the Fiend's Mac, and I'm just like, so how do I do this? Where do I go? What do I press? Like what buttons? Like I feel like I'm in Zoolander, and I'm just like the files are in the computer, and I'm just slapping the top of the laptop. Like, how do I do this?
That's how I am with iPhones. Like I've always had an Android. Like I've never bought an iPhone. I don't care to buy an iPhone, but I'm the same way. It's funny how you're either on one side or the other. It's the same with video games. Either you're an Xbox guy or you're a Sony guy.
I switched. I was an Xbox guy. I was diehard Xbox. Halo 1 is probably one of the best. Like, never having played that game and having only heard people play it, the first time I got my Xbox, put it in, sat down, and you crash land on this planet, and you can just look around, and you don't even know what to do. They don't even tell you what to do. It's like Minecraft. They just put you out there, and like there's aliens, and you just start to kill them, and you're just like, I think this is the way I'm supposed to go. Like that experience is why I loved Xbox for so long. And then
me too.
And then all my friends had PlayStation 4, so I ended up switching to PlayStation 4s.
I bought a PS4. I just hardly ever played it. I think I bought it for like the Heavy Rain series. There's a trilogy of games that I like. There's like Heavy Rain, Detroit Become Human, and I forgot what the third one was. Oh, and I want to get it for when The Last of Us 2 came out because I love the first game. But no, I'm still an Xbox guy. I haven't bought a Series X or an S yet, but I will once they're
more available.
Yeah, and they brought the fucking bugs out. Like I don't ever buy first or second gen.
Of course, yeah.
I mean, buggy,
when they come out with the Series X Lite, that's going to be more powerful and cheaper than the current one that's out right now.
Wow, that's crazy. Like,
I mean, then think about it though, with what we were talking about with the price of games. Think about it now that the Switch Lite is a thing. Just think if you got the original Switch with the dock, that thing's probably going to be worth something one day because people are going to be so used to the Switch Lite now. Yeah, and those are so hard to find. I mean, think about during the COVID.
True.
Literally, Target would have written on a dry erase board out front, we do not have alcohol, we don't have toilet paper, we don't have Nintendo Switches.
True.
People's priorities during the pandemic.
There's a lot of third-party retailers selling them through Amazon and Walmart, like third-party. They were selling them for like $500, $600, $700, $800, even $1,000. I was like, holy fuck! I still love mine, so I could.
Oh yeah, I took it on the train with me when we rode to New York. So like when my phone died, I just pull it out and I just start playing the emulation games, which I do hate Nintendo for kind of killing the emulator market with the ROMs and stuff like that. But I get it. They're using your IP and all that stuff. And some of those guys are dumb for trying to monetize those websites. Like, what do you think is going to happen?
Yeah, for sure. Dude, we could talk video games all night too. Like, we should definitely get back for a video game show because I know Matt's trying to corner the market on that with Adam, but
you do the video games just as well. Like I was a huge like video game person growing up like that. I, like playing Nintendo, playing Dragon Warrior. Just going back, like that was my first. Well, I mean, even before that, like I said, my dad was at Radio Shack, so we had like my brother posted a tweet the other day about it, like one of the original like kind of like computer like video game things that they had. I can't remember what it's called, but like we were brought up on that. Like I was telling Bello I was playing this game called Conflict, the Middle East. It's like you're Israel, and you basically have to take out the countries that border you, and you can use military means, you can use like political means like coups and pay and helping the insurgents and stuff like that to kind of collapse the government. But you have to like work around geopolitical tensions. You have the United Nations. You have if you're like very warmongering, the US will cut off aid, and then you can only buy like your military stuff from like the black market.
Wow.
So, like you can develop nuclear programs, and like this was one of those big floppy disks computer games, and I'm like 8 years old, like playing, learning geopolitics about Israel, like not really knowing anything about. Games are amazing.
They really are.
like the stuff that they come up with. Like,
yeah, that sounds badass, dude. I would love to play that.
you can find it. You can find it. I think like one of those online emulators.
Mhm.
If you just type in like conflict in the Middle East, like I said, I showed Bello the game the other day, and we were talking about it. Like you can find it online, and play it on like one of those websites. Like because like Free Civ. I used to play a lot of Civilization.
Yeah.
They have Free Civ. You can go find like the first Civilization on like a free share type of thing.
That's really cool. That's really cool. Yeah, I would definitely take a deep dive into that.
Are you a fan of RTS style games?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I like pretty much all games. Really,
there's one that I found on like a flash drive. It's called Battle for West Noth. Let me see if I can share it with you. I want to show it to you before you go. It's pretty cool. It's very like the graphics aren't anything special, but the way that it like it's a hexagonal like RTS style game. And you carry your characters over. So like you want to try to like level up certain characters so that you can carry them over for like the next games. Like you want your cleric to like heal up so that your cleric can be like the healer. Let's see some of these pictures. Like it's really cool. Like, and the different terrain gives you like certain aspects and like gives you plus and minuses. Like they have elven characters, knight characters, like ghoul characters.
Yeah.
If you're like a night ranger as one of the elves, when you go in the trees, you basically like become invisible to other units. Like it's really very interesting for like a game that I found on a flash drive, and it's free. Like it's free for you to download and go out and play, and it's amazing. I play it on like once or twice a month. I'll get in and just deep dive, just play the hell out of a campaign.
I'm gonna have to check it out. Like the original like game I played like that was on the Intellivision. It was called Utopia. I mean, this is like pre-Nintendo, like old shit, like Coleco, you know, like the old early 80s stuff. And there was 2 islands. And you could pick which side you want to be on, didn't matter. You could plant crops, you can build schools, you can build houses and all that, and you're kind of building just your own little country. Well, you would have insurgents come in and try to take over your shit. You had rainstorms that would come through and they'd water your crops, and you'd earn money from that, so you can buy more stuff. They had like hurricanes come through and destroy your fucking. It's just basic little symbols on the fucking screen, but I mean, you know, you had
sounds like a Sim City before Sim City ever was like a thing.
Pretty much, yeah. It was just, you know, basic graphics, but it was pretty fucking cool to try to, you know, beat the game. And I don't even know how you could beat the game. It kept like
it cycles over.
Yeah, it would have like 5-minute rounds. It would just keep going over and over again. But I mean, that was you know basically like an original RTS game where, you know, this shit's coming. You got to like move your fucking stuff out of the way because the hurricane's coming. So like it was pretty cool. It was really cool like that. So I mean, I'm a huge fan of like any kind of games. My dad was a gadget guy. You know, like your dad growing up, he always had to have, you know, the latest gadgets or the latest video games, whatever. So we had
stereo setups, beta and I think my dad still has a Betamax that he uses for his security system. Like he'll pop the video in. It's the quality. You get better quality of the intruder when they're trying to break into your house with the Betamax than you do with the VHS.
That's so funny.
We're not making porno here. We're trying to catch intruders. I need quality.
That's so cool. Yeah, you know, actually, I do miss Radio Shack because where else could you go to get like the most ridiculous kind of like chords or fucking shit?
And they changed it too. Like when they went away from computer parts to being more like a Best Buy and selling cell phones.
Yeah,
because that was their demise. They basically became a cell phone company.
Yeah. Like where else can I go and get like an ohm connector for my fucking like Atari or shit like that? You know what I mean? Like
pretty much.
Nobody else carried that shit. So Radio Shack literally had everything.
And fun story. My dad, one of the Radio Shacks that he worked at in Gastonia, the organ player for Iron Butterfly lived in the area and came into my dad's store and put the organ, like played the organ on the Casio keyboard and recorded the organ part for In-A-Gadda-Da-Vida.
Oh wow!
Like in the store, and like I used to go to the store a lot when like my dad would work. He might take us up there. We'd go hang out, play with the toys. And he was like, yeah, somebody, I think, erased over it. I'm pretty sure that kid might have been me, not knowing what it was. But like, like, that sounds really cool, but I'm gonna do something else. And it'd be like bing bong bloop, bloop, bloop. Just me just banging on the keys. This destroyed art, great art with my terrible, shitty art.
That's rough. Yeah, I remember like having a Texas Instruments TI-99 4A where I first learned how to code. Like they had basic codes and shit that they would teach you. And there was one code where you put in the code and whatever, phrase or sentence you put out, and it would just run it over and over down the screen, up and down the screen. It would just loop. And so I went to one of the Radio Shacks in the mall, and they had one on display out front. So I put in like, I like poop or whatever. Like I was like 7, 8 years old. And then it would just scroll up on the screen. Anybody who walked by would see it. So like, dude, I miss the old days.
Oh yeah. Put boobs on there and just have it 8008S and just have it scroll over.
Yeah. But good stuff. We're definitely have to get back and do like a video game or, computer show or some shit like that.
What did you just say to me? Yeah, pal.
Well, I know we kind of got off subject here, but I mean, how much can you really talk about G.I. Joe? And
yeah, and again, because like I said, it's not as big as the Turtles and stuff was, and I'm one of those fans that ask that question, like why is this, like, unless there's just this silent underground of like fans. Yep. Sometimes the parents would have to step in and be like, no, you're not trading that game, because they knew that you were about to rip their kid off.
Yeah, pretty much. Like, I loved when my best friend would come over with like his case of games, and you'd have like 20 or 30 games. I'm like, ooh, I didn't play that.
I will trade you this terrible game for your Bomberman, please. I will take it.
Oh man, hey, I appreciate you being here, dude.
Thank you, Rob. Thank you for having me.
I could talk to you all day. You have such a smooth voice.
Thank you. I appreciate that. That's that Shure SM7B that you're listening to right now.
I almost
looked up to a Roadcaster. I don't have the cloud lifter like Stevie, but my voice is damn sexy.
It is. It really is.
You shouldn't have said
it. Yeah, I almost bought the Shure, but I thought, man, they're over marketing it. It's always on fucking Facebook ads and shit. I'm like,
I see it all over the place.
I'm gonna go with the Rhodes, and then I bought a Rode NT, which was a USB. When I bought the Roadcaster, I didn't know that you couldn't use USB with it. I'm like, oh, fuck me. I just bought this microphone. And I love that microphone too, but I ended up buying I asked Stevie for advice, and he said, just get the Rode Pod mic. I'm like, all right.
It sounds good. Your mic sounds great. Like it's awesome. Like that's the one thing about the Shure is it works better when you're like really right up on it and stuff. And I have a boom mic hanger, so it's harder for me to get it like right up on it. And then you can really just adjust the faders.
Oh yeah.
They use a lot of these in the professional world. Like I see a lot of them on stage. They'll have the straight stand like going straight up to the person's mouth for them to talk into it. But I'm used to like a dynamic mic where I can sit off it a little bit. Like I went to broadcasting school, and they tell you to, about this far away from the mic is where you want to be at and everything. But I mean, my first mic was a $20 Behringer. That thing sounded awesome for $20.
I actually have a friend. I don't know what the model is, but he has like a Radio Shack mic, like just a stand. I think it is even put out by Radio Shack, and he's like, I've had this shit for 15, 20 years. He's like, it's still the best sounding fucking mic I've ever had.
They made some great stuff. If Radio Shack slapped its name on it, it was usually really good. Like Tandy Corporation knew what they were doing.
Yeah.
And then they had bad management.
There's actually one Radio Shack that I know of that's still left. And I forgot where in Alabama it is, but we were driving to Panama City Beach on vacation a few months ago. And we were in the middle of fucking nowhere in rural Alabama. And there was still a fucking Radio Shack open.
Dude, Shoney's disappeared off the face of the earth. And I lived in Oxford, Alabama for like 6 months. And there was a Shoney's that was still up and running in Oxford, Alabama. So like maybe Alabama's where old stores go to die. Like if you had a favorite store, like you go to Alabama, there's still a Toys R Us there.
Right,
like,
right.
But no, Radio Shack had franchises. So like a lot of the ones that you still see like at the beach, we'd frequent Myrtle Beach a lot, and they would have a lot of the you would see like Radio Shack like franchise. There was like a certain thing that they had on the board so that you knew that it wasn't necessarily a real Radio Shack, like a corporate owned Radio Shack, but those, they owned the store and the name and everything like that, so they could still stay open. So there is the chance that there are still some Radio Shacks that guys were business savvy and pivoted. You know, if you repair stuff, if you do that type of stuff for people, you're always going to have people coming back. You got to learn to diversify.
True, but I mean, where do you get your new products from? I mean, if you don't have a distributor, right?
Well, no, I'm sure you can find one. I'm sure there's plenty. China, there's plenty of distributors in China. Like Amazon, you can buy so much of the USB cables and stuff cheap.
That's true.
There's all kinds of stuff now. Yeah, it just turned to the internet. You gotta kind of find your own distributor. But I think, like you said, I think you're trying to wrap up the show, Rob. So let's take it home. Like you said, we could continue to talk all night. Like the Fiend's giving me evil eyes here, and now she's the Fiend Danse, and yeah, it's
like it. Well, yeah, I do. I this show always goes off the fucking rails. Like anybody that's ever listened to this show, I never stay on point or on topic. You know, I'm so fucking flighty. You know, I'm old.
That's how I was with the ridiculously random podcast. Like I don't really prepare for a lot of the stuff. Like I will, but it's like if I had know enough, like the nostalgia part. Like I'm not like a mark for G.I. Joe. I just remember the nostalgia, what I remember from my childhood, my opinions about it. I'm not like a G.I. Joe historian that's going to come hit you over. Well, in 1982, Hasbro started doing this, and then they came up with the development of Duke. I mean, yeah, there's important. Yeah. You can learn a lot of stuff like that, but that was I had better things to do.
But I mean, everybody else can cover that. You know what I mean? Like we just want bullshit and talk about stuff that we like.
If you want to get deep in it, get deep in it. That's like we'll just cover. I'm like, I love being a surface guy, and you get to dive as deep as you want. You know, we might pique your interest on something. You might be like, you know what, Colin and Rob were right. I'm gonna go check out G.I. Joe. I'm gonna go watch some old episodes on Hasbro's YouTube channel, and I'm gonna remember the great PSAs of these guys saving these young kids, you know, stopping robberies and keeping kids from doing drugs. You know, it's all positive here. Isn't that what everybody wants? Isn't that what the new culture is all about, is being positive and inclusive? And equality and equity. You get that with G.I. Joe.
That's right.
And you get guns.
Everybody. Yeah.
And you get guns.
Yeah, and you get guns. True. Colin, where can we find you on social media? And give everybody your plugs and where they could find you.
Thank you, Rob. You can find me on Twitter at Colin Wysong, on Facebook at Colin Wysong. I do have an Instagram. I don't use it all that much, but it's also at Colin Wysong. There's a theme here. I'm like Opinion Haver, where he just kind of tries to corner the market on everything Opinion Haver. Like I think I convinced him to open up a grinder and just get the Opinion Haver name and just log off so he can have it. He's the collector of tags. But you can find me on the Impact Attack with @Opinion Haver. That's the vet. We go live Fridays around 10 o'clock due to work schedules. And usually it gets dropped that Saturday morning. If you want to listen to that, we'll be covering both the pay-per-view and the show this week. Our poor Moose. We love Moose. Moose is awesome, and he didn't beat Kenny Omega. There were shenanigans involved, and I'm sure the vet is very upset about that because we love Moose. And you can find me on the A Show with April Hunter and Aaron Stevens. I have to thank Ben Hameen for allowing me, an infidel such as myself, to be able to work with the intellectual savior, Damian Sandow, or Aaron Stevens, current NWA Tag Team Champion, and the beautiful, the lovely, the smart, she is highly intelligent, April Hunter. You might actually catch her on a couple shows with Billy Ray Valentine coming up, doing some conspiracy stuff. Like she there's a lot to her besides her big boobs. Yeah. There's a lot more to April Hunter, and she's just trying to get that out there. And we have so much fun on the A Show. We talk about wrestling a little bit. But we try not to. We try to talk a lot of other things and try to do something different. Because you know, it's the podcast market is enriched with Marks doing wrestling shows, Dirt Sheets doing wrestling shows, and then actual wrestlers doing wrestling shows. And I would rather listen to Ben Hameen, Stevie Richards, and Vince Russo talk about wrestling than I would a David Bixenspan or a Sean Ross Sapp or any of these other dirt sheet writers out here talking about wrestling. Because you know why? They haven't done it. They haven't been in the ring.
That's right.
That's what matters to me most.
That's right. Fuck those guys, especially Sapp.
Yeah.
I had him on the show. He's actually nice to me, but
no, he seems really cool. He's an
SJW.
I had a guy when they did the releases. I had a guy actually comment back to me because I heard there's more releases, and we have our own William Alicia who
That's right.
reports. And this guy was like, "Oh well, I didn't see Sean Ross Sapp say anything about it. SRS didn't say anything about it." It's like, so he's the only one. I think I tweeted this back to him, like, so he's the only one with connections to the WWE. Like,
he's the authority.
like he's the new Meltzer. Like
Yeah,
they're
yeah.
not feeding him fake information. Like, come on, man.
Although, unlike Meltzer, who only likes AEW and New Japan, like SRS likes everything. I mean, he'll do anything for $1. So anyway, moving on. You guys can follow me on Twitter at Rad Rob Gaming. Check me out on Twitch, twitch.tv/Rad Rob Gaming. I stream every Tuesday night and Saturday night, 6 p.m. Central, 7 Eastern, 5 Pacific, midnight fucking GST.
Put a nice hour and 15 minutes on that watch time for you there.
Yeah, thank you. Fuck was I talking about? Oh yeah, Twitter, Instagram at Rad Rob Gaming. I also have a YouTube channel at Rad Rob Gaming or youtube.com/Rad Rob Gaming. I'm a retro gamer, so if you want to check out old school stuff, check me out. And you can hear my other podcast, RTW Main Event, that drops every Thursday. It's the show where me and the Ocho we barely talk wrestling, kind of like they do on the A show. We decided we're just gonna fucking bullshit for an hour and a half, and it's the most ridiculous
Sometimes it's fun.
hour and a half you could spend. So check that out anywhere podcasts are found. Once again, Colin, thank you for being here, my friend.
Thank you.
Definitely like to have you on again in the future. And thanks everybody here on the HMG YouTube channel for hanging out and chat. We appreciate all you guys here, all of our loyal, faithful viewers and listeners. The audio version will drop this Sunday, anywhere podcasts are found, or on the HMG affiliate feed. So anything you missed here, you can replay the video, or you can listen to the audio. So thanks everybody for hanging out.
Can I tease a possible return? Maybe we talk basketball or Orgasmo next time I come on the show.
Ooh, cliffhanger, bitches. That's right. Thanks, guys. We appreciate your support. We'll see you on the next one.